Yesterday's show, you may have heard a discussion that we had with a medical ethicist, a clinical ethicist about the ethics of this declaration that is known as the Great Barrington Declaration, which has been signed by a group of scientists that aims to achieve herd immunity. Our clinical ethicist from the University of Toronto was not too fancy on this idea. This declaration that most businesses and organizations should reopen, schools and universities should have in-person teaching, young people should go about their lives, and the older members of the population, senior citizens, vulnerable people, those with comorbidities, they should continue to shelter in an attempt to achieve herd immunity. Well, so that's the Barrington Declaration, and now along comes something called the John Snow Memorandum. It's hard to keep track of it all, isn't it? Dr. Raywat Deonandan is back on 1310 News, epidemiologist and associate professor, Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Ottawa. And Doctor, good morning, first of all.
Good morning.
You have signed the John Snow Memorandum.
Yes, I have.
Has nothing to do with Game of Thrones.
Right? I get that question so many times. That's another story entirely.
Okay. What is it? What is it?
Well, it is a memorandum that is pretty much in response to the Great Barrington Declaration that shows that the majority of epidemiologists and infectious disease specialists are, in fact, opposed to this herd immunity idea for scientific reasons, in addition to the ethical reasons that your previous guest had mentioned. So it puts forth the scientific reasoning why we are opposed to the herd immunity approach, and it also signals to the world that this is not so much a division among scientists, not an equal division. It's quite a lopsided division, kind of like climate change. The overwhelming majority of people who study this are opposed to a herd immunity approach. It's a tiny minority who are in favor of it.
Okay. Given that is the case, why are you opposed to the Barrington Declaration and you are endorsing this John Snow Memorandum?
Right. First of all, debate is great.
Sure.
These opposing viewpoints should be heard, absolutely, and it's great that we're able to put forth our opposing ideas. First, they're proposing that two things. One is that we protect the vulnerable, this focused protection idea, and second is that we let the disease run rampant through the rest of people so that they acquire herd immunity. First of all, we don't know who the vulnerable are. We know the elderly and maybe the obese, the hypertensive, the diabetics, fine. That's like 2/3 of the population in some parts of the world. So are we going to protect a majority and let a minority run wild? How does that look? What's the cutoff going to be? Is it going to be a BMI of X? Is it going to be an age of 60 and above, 70 and above, 80 and above? How does this work? Then there's the practicality aspects of it. No plan was put forward on how you protect the vulnerable. Do teenagers have to go live in a group home as their parents go segregated away in different parts of society? How does this work? And we know it's probably not possible. I mean, those places where it's been tried, and I would say that Sweden kind of tried this, they had a horrific death rate amongst their long-term care residents. So institutionalizing people to protect them fails. It fails every time because that's the way that an infectious disease works. And that's when you try to control it in the community. Imagine trying to encourage it to run rampant through the community and then trying to keep it out of certain areas. It's nearly impossible. Then there's the math. So in Canada, we have, 35 million people or so. If 70% of that is needed to get herd immunity, that's 25 million people. So let's say we're letting it run rampant through our children, young people, to the tune of 25 million infections. And in that population, maybe the fatality rate is like 0.01%. It's that low. But 0.01% of 25 million people is a couple of thousand deaths, if not more. So you tell me which 2,000 of our children you want to sacrifice for this plan, right? Okay. So it's a cruel plan that is not workable, in my opinion, and no plan has been put forward to make it workable. My final objection to this, let me say as well that the most protected man in the world, Donald Trump, got infected. despite having all the protections, people around him tested all the time, a team of medical specialists. What hope is there for the grandmother downtown living alone in a high-rise apartment to be protected? It's unlikely. So the thrust of the declaration is really that the economy comes before health. And I understand that argument, but maybe we should be thinking about the economy should be in service to well-being and how we can use it to make people healthier rather than sacrificing 2,000 lives, really, in order to keep the economy open.
Okay.
So, yeah, sorry, I gave you a big data dump.
No, that's okay. That's fine. But to me, one of the great problems right now is what is really known about immunity. You know, people are herd immunity, but what do we really know about it? We don't know if this is lifelong immunity. We don't know if it lasts for a year. We don't know if you're going to need if there's going to be a vaccine, if you're going to need a booster shot. There have been stories in the last week, people getting infected twice. And not only when they get reinfected, it's worse the second time, which is highly unusual as I understand it. There's so many unknowns about this.
That's right. So when you get infected naturally and recover naturally, there's a wide spectrum of your experiences. Some people don't produce any antibodies at all. Some produce a lot of antibodies. Some people are going to be reinfected quite easily. A vaccine can be calibrated and titrated to give most people a solid immune response. And with a booster shot, maybe do it every year or so until the disease is under control. So in absence of that plan, what we're probably seeing, to quote Bill Hanage, a Harvard scientist, is that given the expected duration of immunity, its endemic transmission, that means we're saying we're going to have a continued risk continuously while this herd immunity plan is unfolding. So we're asking our young people to get reinfected again and again and again, each time risking death, each time risking this prolonged morbidity. It's cruel.
Thank you again, Doctor, for your insight this morning. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is Dr. Ray Deonandan.